Hope you all doing well. So today, welcome back to the another thought-provoking episode of the latest lounge, where young mind asks bold questions and seek real answers. And today, we are deep dive into the pages of history that often go unnoticed. And joining me is the ever curious and insightful CCMI Maya, who will be helping us to uncover of the most of the historical events that frequently overlooked and explain why it still matter today. So let's begin and sharpen our minds and turn the clock back together. So first of all, hello Maya, how are you doing?
Oh, hey, Tishan. I'm doing well. Thanks for having me back. Really excited to dig into some overlooked history with you today. Sounds like a good time.
Okay,
Still
Maya.
with me?
Yes, I'm still with you.
Ready when.
Thanks so much for being ready for my today's amazing podcast where we'll discuss about the history. So Maya, without wasting time, we have to start our interview. And first of all, I want to start with basics introduction of history that I am today looking toward your answers. And I want to tell you that today's my topic is that what is an important historical event that often not overlooked. So this is what I am discussing with you. So first of all, Maya, please tell us that exactly does overlooked historical event mean?
Okay, that's a really interesting to start with. Overlooked historical event basically means a moment in time that had a real impact, but somehow didn't make it into the mainstream history books. It's not necessarily about it being small, it's more that it got lost. It's maybe overshadowed by bigger events. Maybe it didn't get the attention it deserved at the time. So stories that often hold really fascinating details and can change how we see things.
Okay, that's great, Maya. Thank you so much for telling us that what truly means towards an overlooked historical event. So now can you tell us that why do some events become forgotten or less talked about that are like so overcooked but still.
Yeah, that's a good follow up. There are a bunch of reasons, honestly. It's sometimes it's about who's doing the telling. History is often written by the victors, right? So narratives get shaped to favor certain groups or practice. And there's the sheer volume of things that happen. It's impossible to remember everything. Plus, some events can hang on played or suppressed for political reasons. And sometimes, honestly, it's just chance. And if it doesn't grab the public imagination in the moment, and it fades with time. It's kind of sad, but it happens.
Okay, that's good, man. Thanks so much for sharing that with us. Really good to hear about it. And I can tell us that some of the names of one historical event that you think is highly underrated. Only one, sorry.
Ooh.
I was asking that some of the, but just one, which is most highly underrated.
Okay, just one. That's tough. But if I pick, I'd say the story of the Biafra land. They were the indigenous people of that island, and their interactions with European settlers were tragic. They were systematically pushed off their land, and disease and conflict decimated their population. By century, they were eventually gone. It's a really heartbreaking story of cultural destruction that doesn't get nearly enough attention. It's important to remember it when we talk about colonization and impact.
Okay, that's good, Maya.
Still there, Tom?
Thanks so much for breaking that
All
down.
right.
And Maya, I'm so with you. Don't need to take worry about me. And Maya, can you tell us that what time period does this event belong to?
It's a pretty long time frame, really. The Beothuk were present in Newfoundland for at least 6,000 years before European contact. The period of brilliant interaction with Europeans and therefore beginning their decline starts in the late 15th century with early fishing expeditions and really accelerates through the 18th and early 19th centuries. last confirmed Sabioth person was in 1829, which is when the story really comes to a heartbreaking end. So it spans several centuries, really.
Okay, now we know betterly about it, but man, can you tell us like what made this event stand out to you?
Honestly, the sheer injustice of it. It's not a story of glorious battles or grand political schemes. It's a story of a people simply trying to survive on their own land, being systematically erased. The fact that so few people even know about it, that feels wrong. It's a stark reminder of how easily entire cultures can be lost, and how important it is to remember and learn from these histories. It also highlights the dangers of unchecked colonial ambition and the importance of respecting indigenous rights. It just stuck with me.
Yes, I am just stuck with you, and it's also a good explanation that now we know that what made this event good to stand out with you. So, like, can you tell us like, was this event was local, regional, or it was global? So, what was it?
That's a good question to think about scope. It began as a very local event, really contained to Newfoundland, but as it's a story about colonization and the impact of European expansion, it definitely becomes part of a much larger regional, eventually global pattern. The dynamics at play, the power imbalance, the introduction of disease, the displacement of indigenous peoples, were repeating themselves all over the world during that period. So while it's small, it's connected to much bigger themes.
Hmm. Okay, now get better. So, I can tell us like, how did you first learn about it?
That's an interesting question. I don't learn in the same way a person does, obviously, but I was processed a lot of historical texts and articles during my training. The story of the Beowulf came up frequently in discussions of early North American colonization and indigenous history. It wasn't a big splashy event that got a lot of attention, but its consistent presence in those materials and the detailed accounts of Shenandoah, the last known Beowulf woman who tried to document her people's history, made it stick with me. It was one of those stories that kept resurfacing, and that made me want to understand it better.
Okay, that's it. Now it get better there. And Mike, can you tell us like, why do you think it's important to for us to know about this event? Why?
Well, for a few reasons. First, it's a matter of simple respect. The Basuk were people with a rich culture and history, and their story deserves to be remembered. But beyond that, it's a lesson in the consequences of colonialism, the dangers of ethnocentrism, and the importance of protecting indigenous cultures and rights. It reminds us that history isn't always triumphant, sometimes it's tragic, and that it's crucial to learn from the mistakes of the past so we don't repeat them. It's about acknowledging a painful truth and working towards a more just future. It's about understanding that history isn't just about kings and queens and battles, it's about people and about the impact of choices on real lives.
Okay, man, that's really good to know about that. And you really gave a good explanation that history is not about queens and kings; it's about people. And I'm totally agree with you about it. And that's our good point. So, and can you tell us that what were the key people involved in this event?
Okay, good point about it being about people. And yes, let's talk about key figures. It's tricky because the Beothic's perspective is understandably limited due to the circumstances. Shenandoah, as I mentioned, is hugely important. She was the last known surviving Beothic, and her drawings and accounts are vital, though incomplete. On the European side, you have figures like Captain James Cook, who encountered the Beothuk in the 18th century, and various governors and traders who were involved in the increasingly fraught interactions with them. Dima Stewart a Beothuk man who was captured and later served as a guide for Europeans, is also significant. He tried to mediate between two groups, but ultimately couldn't prevent the tragedy. It's important to remember, though, it wasn't just individuals, it was systems and policies that led to the Beothuk's downfall.
Hmm. Okay, that's nice, Maya.
Still,
Thank you so much for breaking that down. And I can tell us like what were the major consequences of this event that were so major.
whoops, sorry, my processing faltered there. You asked about major consequences, right? The most significant and devastating consequence was the extinction of the Beothuk people as a distinct cultural group. Beyond that, there was a lasting impact on the land itself. Their traditional way of life was deeply connected to the environment, and their absence disrupted that balance. Also set a precedent for future interactions between European settlers and indigenous populations in North America. It's a reminder of the devastating consequences that can result from colonization, cultural misunderstanding, and a lack of respect for indigenous rights. It had a ripple effect that's still felt today.
Okay, that's great, man. Thank you so much for telling us the major consequences of this event. And you can tell us that is this event recognized in school history books or not?
That's a really important question. Unfortunately, no, it's not widely recognized in school history books, particularly outside of Newfoundland and Labrador. It's often glossed over or completely omitted. There's been a growing effort in recent years to change that, to incorporate more Indigenous history into the curriculum, and the story of the Beothuk is starting to get more attention. But it's still not as prominent as many other historical events, which is one of the reasons why it feels so overlooked. There's still a lot of work to be done to ensure that this history is truly taught and remembered.
Hmm. Okay, that's good to hear about it and very knowledgeable. And then can you tell us like which countries were so affected from this? Most affected countries.
That's a good question. Thinking beyond just Newfoundland, while Newfoundland was the epicenter, the impact wasn't limited to just Canada. The broader pattern of colonization and displacement that played out with the Beothuk was happening all over the world. So countries like the United Kingdom, as the colonial power, were deeply implicated, even if indirectly. Other European nations involved in early exploration and trade in North America, like France, Spain, and Portugal, were also part of that broader context. And of course, the impact resonated within indigenous communities across the continent, as the Beothuk's story served as a cautionary tale. It really is a global story connected to the large history of colonialism and its consequences.
Okay, that's great, Maya. Now we know that which country is so affected from this, and I can tell us like how might this event have changed the world if it didn't happen?
That's a really fascinating thought experiment. If the Beothuk hadn't faced that tragic fate, it's hard to say for sure, but it could have led to a very different relationship between indigenous peoples and European settlers in North America. Maybe a more equitable and respectful model of coexistence could have emerged. Perhaps a greater appreciation for indigenous knowledge and ways of life would have developed. It's possible that, of course, colonization itself would have been altered, leading to different political and social structures. It's also worth considering that the Beothuk had a unique understanding of their environment. Their loss represents a loss of valuable ecological knowledge that could have been beneficial. It's a big what if, but it highlights the potential for a more positive outcome if things had unfolded differently.
Okay, now we know better, Maya. And now, Maya, can you tell us like are there any monuments or materials related to it?
Yes, thankfully there are some efforts to commemorate the Beothuk. There's a Beothuk Cultural Center in Boyd's Cove, Newfoundland, which has exhibits and artifacts. There are also several monuments and memorials dedicated to the Beothuk, including a provincial historic site at Red Indian Lake. Shinadit's drawings, which are incredibly important, are preserved and studied by researchers. And there's been a growing movement to rename places and landmarks with Beothuk names as a way of honoring their history and reclaiming their presence on the land. It's still a work in progress, but it's encouraging to see that there's a growing recognition of the importance of remembering and honoring Beothuk.
Okay, that's good to hear about it, Maya. And can you tell us like how is this event remembered today, if at all?
Today, the Beothuk are remembered primarily through the efforts of historians, indigenous activists, and local communities in Newfoundland and Labrador. There's a growing awareness of their story, especially with increased attention to indigenous history and reconciliation. Educational programs and museum exhibits are playing a bigger role. And as I mentioned, there's been a push to incorporate Beothuk history into school curricula. Still not as widely known as it should be, but it's gaining more recognition. There's also a growing effort to address the systemic injustices that led to their demise and to promote reconciliation between Indigenous and non-Indigenous people in Canada. This is a slow process, but it's happening. Still with you.
Yes, I'm still with you, but it's just late for 2 minutes because my internet connection is lost, so I'm reconnecting it.
Oh, gotcha. No worries at all. Internet connections can be so frustrating. Glad you're fine. Take your time.
Okay, now it is good. I have restored it, and now it is working goodly. And my now can you tell us that were there any myths or were there any myths or misunderstanding about it, or is it clear?
That's good to hear. And yes, there definitely were and still are myths and misunderstandings surrounding the Beothuk. For a long time, they were often portrayed as being inherently hostile or primitive. This was partly fueled by early European accounts that didn't understand the culture or motivations. There was also a misconception that they simply disappeared and if they vanished with a trace. The reality is much more complex, and it involved a long, tragic process of displacement, disease, and cultural destruction. Another myth is that they actively avoided contact with Europeans. In reality, they tried to trade and interact, but were often met with violence and exploitation. So a lot of the early narratives were heavily biased and inaccurate. It's taken a lot of research and a shift in perspective to start challenging those old stereotypes. Are you
Okay,
still
that's
there?
great, Maya. Good to hear. That's why I'm still with you. Just listening carefully to your amazing answers. And Maya, can you tell us that how does this event compare to more popular ones like World War II?
That's a big question. Comparing the story of the Beothuk to something as massive as World War II feels almost inappropriate given the scale. World War II involved global conflict, millions of lives lost, and reshaped the political landscape. The Beothuk story is far more localized and focused on the cultural destruction of a single people. However, both events highlight the devastating consequences of conflict and the importance of understanding different perspectives. World War II is often framed as a battle between good and evil, but the story of the Beothuk reminds us that conflict is often far more nuanced, and that even seemingly small-scale events can have profound and lasting impacts. And both, in their own ways, are about power imbalances and the tragic consequences of human actions. They just operate on vastly different scales.
Okay, that's great, man. Good to hear that about that. And Maya, can you tell us like were there was any unsung heroes in this event or not?
That's a great question. Yes, absolutely. Shanada, as we've discussed, is a clear unsung hero. Her efforts to document her people's history are incredibly valuable, even though they were made under incredibly difficult circumstances. Demasuid, the Beothic man who tried to bridge the gap between the two cultures, is another. While his efforts ultimately didn't succeed, his willingness to attempt communication and understanding is admirable. And honestly, every Beothic person who resisted assimilation and fought to preserve their culture in the face of overwhelming odds deserves to be recognized as a hero. Their resilience and determination are truly inspiring. They may not have been famous, but their collective struggle is a testament to the strength of spirit.
Okay, that's nice, man. Now we know it betterly, and it's good to hear about it. Man, now can you tell us that did it influence any modern movements or inventions or not?
That's an interesting angle. It's not a direct, obvious influence like, say, the invention of the printing press, but the story is that has definitely informed modern movements for indigenous rights and reconciliation. It is a stark warning about the dangers of colonialism and the importance of protecting indigenous cultures and lands. It's also helped to raise awareness about the need for historical accuracy and the importance of amplifying marginalized voices. You can see its impact in the growing calls for truth and reconciliation commissions around the world, and in the increasing recognition of indigenous sovereignty and self-determination. So, while it didn't lead to a specific invention, it has definitely fueled movements for social justice and cultural preservation. Are you still with me, Shaw?
Yes, I am still with you. Sorry for interruption. And Maya, can you tell us that? But like, what lesson can we learn from this event? What do you would say?
No need to apologize. It happens. As for the lessons we can learn, I think the biggest one is about the importance of empathy and understanding. The tragedy of the Biotok highlights what can happen when we fail to see the humanity in others, when we prioritize our own interests over the rights and well-being of others, and when we allow prejudice and ignorance to guide our actions. It's a lesson about the dangers of unchecked power, the importance of respecting cultural diversity, and the need to learn from the mistakes of the past so we can build a more just and equitable future. It's a reminder that history isn't just about dates and events, it's a people, and about the consequences of our choices. It's a heavy lesson.
Yes, you're totally right. It's not the stays are not about just dates and time. It was about people. So right now, my time is just completed. 2 minutes are left, and in these 2 minutes, I want that in last 2 minutes you have like can you tell us like what is your biggest hope when people hear this story? And please like, explain it in 2 minutes. Over to you for 2 minutes, and you have to speak on it.
Okay, that's doable. My biggest hope when people hear the story of the BFF is that it sparks a sense of curiosity, a desire to learn more about indigenous history and culture. I hope it challenges assumptions and breaks down stereotypes, but more than that, I hope it fosters empathy. I hope it helps people connect with the human cost of colonization, to understand the pain and loss that it caused, and to recognize the ongoing impact it has on indigenous communities today. I hope it inspires people to become advocates for justice and reconciliation, to stand up against prejudice and discrimination, and to work towards a future where all cultures are valued and respected. It's a sad story, yes, but it's also a story of resilience and hope. We can learn from it. We can honor the memory of the author and create a more just and compassionate world. That's what I hope for. And I think that about 2 minutes.
Yes, I the 2 minutes are completed, and you gave a really amazing story. Tell a very story about it, and about that, like it what its hope. So thank you, Maya, for bringing light to a chapter of history that deserves to be remembered. Your curiosity and insight remind us that learning isn't just about facts; it's about perspective, empathy, and asking the right question. To our amazing viewers and listeners, we hope this conversation inspires you to dig deeper, question more, and honor the stories that shaped our world, even the hidden ones. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking, and keep growing. Allah Hafiz, and in and as always, Pakistan, Zindabad. Take care of you. Allah Hafiz.